Hey guys, Shamisha here with Community Development and Showit. I'm so excited to have you guys here today because we are bringing a hot topic to your screens today. We are talking about SEO. I know sometimes that can be scary, but before we get into the details, I want to see people in the chat. I already know before it even started, we had people saying, hey. So where are you guys from? I want to know where you're from. There's businesses around the world, and we all need to know about SEO, right? We need to be ranking in our cities, in our states. Alrighty, let's see. We have Mariah, Ashley, Dan saying hey in the chat. We're so excited to have you guys here. Just a little housekeeping. So guys, we are on the internet and sometimes it decides to go bonkers on us. So if you find yourself buffering, go ahead and refresh that screen and try to bring it back up. And of course, always come back to this link, guys. We will have this webinar on replay for you available at all times if you have to dip out early or if you just couldn't make it. But let's see, we have Canada in the house. We have Texas. Texas is always here. They represent. We have, Derbyshire, UK. They might have won today from the farthest person coming in today. We have Chicago, another Canada, Ottawa. We have the Netherlands. We got it today, guys. I love all these people in here. But let's do a quick introduction, guys. Today, our guest is Sarah Blodgett with Digital Grace Designs, and we're super excited to have her on today. She is a Showit designer, and she actually won Showit Designer of the Year, I believe in 2019. Either way, she is a Showit Designer of the Year all the time in my book. She is Story Brand certified. And guys, guess what? Something you might not know about her. She was a ballerina for 10 years on Broadway. And now she has transitioned into an entrepreneur and just loves on her clients. She probably has one of the brightest smiles that I know. But I'm sure you don't want to hear any more from me and you want to hear from Sarah. So guys, welcome her to the screen. Let's have fun today.
Hey guys, welcome. I am super excited that you are here for one of my favorite topics, and that is SEO. As Shamisha said, I'm Sarah from Digital Grace Design, where we help creatives like you escape website shame and find confidence in beautiful strategic websites that help you to book more clients and grow your businesses. I'm also the creator of the Simple Showit SEO course, a design partner, and a Story Brand certified guide. So as much as I love a stunning website, as much as the next designer, a website isn't really working for you if folks can't find it when they're looking for your services. Enter SEO. Thanks to SEO, as long as we set it up strategically from the get-go, your website can be a super powerful tool that helps new clients find you when you're asleep, when you're on vacation, when you're with your kids. And I'm proud that many of my clients have the number one method for new clients finding them is through organic search via SEO. And I want the same for you too, which is why we're here. So today, our goal is to break down the basics of SEO so that you walk away with actionable steps to confidently set up solid SEO groundwork on your Showit website. If this sounds good to you, let us know in the chat. I'm super excited. So first and foremost, what is SEO? Why should we focus on it? And why does it matter? All great questions. So if we're starting from scratch, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. But at its core, its job is to make it easy for Google and your website users to understand what you do so that you can be more easily brought up in search results when the right folks are looking for you. Why should we focus on SEO versus social media or advertising, different methods that way to get folks to our business? Also a great question. So with social media, we're relying on platforms that can go down, that we don't have control over. Your reach is sometimes very short-lived with Instagram stories going down after 24 hours. Ads can be expensive, and sometimes we're not sure that they're actually working for us. But unlike all of those things, SEO is a long-term growth and marketing strategy. So if we put in the work today, its effects can be super long lasting. I know for me, some of my oldest blog posts that I wrote 3 or 4 years ago are still some of the top driving things to my website. Some weeks, some of these blog posts even outrank my homepage for the amount of traffic that they bring to my site. So it's pretty cool, the power of SEO. What we'll chat about today is keywords, page titles and meta descriptions, tagging text, image SEO, blogging tips, SSL and a few key Google integrations like Google Analytics and Google Search Console. And ideally, at the end of this, SEO won't feel so scary and you'll feel like you can take action today. We'll walk through each of these things, and if that all looks like mumbo jumbo or a foreign language, that's perfect. You're in the right place. We're going to start from scratch and walk through each of these things. Then at the end, I'll share a handy dandy checklist with you so that you can refer back to it as you need. And then I'll also give you a mock schedule in case you're like, okay, this is a lot of stuff to do. How do I do it in a tangible fashion that breaks it down and makes it feel a little bit more bite-sized? So if you're ready, let's dig in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is keywords. What are they? What are some simple or free ways to do keyword research? And what do I do with them once I know what the keywords are? So keywords are essentially terms or a string of a few terms that sum up what you do. They're also likely what folks are searching for in order to bring up your website. So for example, if you're a New York City wedding photographer, New York City wedding photographer might be your primary keyword. It clearly and succinctly tells folks what you do, and it's also likely what they're typing into the search bar when they're looking for someone that offers services like yours. So you probably know your primary keyword at its core, that probably comes easily to you. But if you're thinking, okay, I know that, but there's probably other keywords that I should be trying to target, and I'm not sure what they are. So a few free ways to do keyword research might be, first and foremost, Google. If you head on over to Google and start typing in that primary keyword or the thing that you think folks are looking for when they're looking for your services, let's say you're a Missoula wedding photographer, if we type that into the search bar, you've likely noticed that there are often a lot of different suggestions that pop up when you type that in. Those are great things to jot down as things that people are actually searching for. You might not have thought to think that, if someone's looking for a Missoula wedding photographer, they might also be Googling whitefish wedding photographer. So you might think, okay, where can I use that in my website to attract or get both of those types of searchers? You might also see, okay, like Missoula wedding photographer, there's also Montana wedding photographer that pops up. So it gives you some similar terms that folks might be searching for that are very complementary to what you are offering as well. Additionally, you might peruse the top search results for what you do for inspiration. The folks that are the top search results that come up when you search for the number one thing you want to rank for are probably doing something right in their SEO. And so you might look through their page titles and their meta descriptions, which we'll talk about in a minute, and see the types of terms that they're using. I'm not saying to plagiarize their page titles or meta descriptions. Absolutely not. But you might see that they phrase a certain term in a unique way that you hadn't thought of, or you might see a different term that you offer too that you might think, okay, how can I include this in my keyword usage across my website? So as you're doing this research, start jotting these keywords down. You could create like a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet of the keywords that you see or the key phrases that you see. or you can just jot them down to keep them on hand. We'll want to keep these keywords top of mind for the rest of the information that we cover today. In addition to those two Google-centric options, you might also check out a website called Keyword Finder or KW Finder. They offer a free 7-day trial, and they give great recommendations for keywords that you might want to consider using that are similar to what you do. And you might also check out SEMrush. It's another SEO platform that's quite robust and also has a 7-day free trial that's worth checking out. Aside from doing keyword research with them, they'll also tell you things like the top 10 keywords that you're ranking for, as well as allow you to get a glimpse into things that your competitors might be ranking for with a little competitor analysis too. So those resources can be great options if you want to dig into this for the first time. I know too that SEMrush also has great resources for how to use their platform. So if you get on there and you feel like it's kind of intimidating, first, know you're not alone. And second, use their resources. They've got great tips and tricks on how to make the best use of their platform. And use those free trials. That might be all you need for the next 6 months to get you started. So what do I do with my keywords once I've done my research? I know essentially more or less what I want to rank for, but where do I put them? So with our keywords, you're going to want to infuse them naturally, just like you would talk, not spammily, where you're listing a bunch of keywords back to back, into your website in places like your website copy, headlines, the alt text for your photos, page titles and meta descriptions, etc. So lots of places that we can use these keywords. And like I said, we're looking for opportunities to sprinkle them throughout our website to add context and texture to what we offer to make it really clear to Google and to users what we do. Keep in mind too that Google has an understanding of context. So if you have copy that talks about, let's say, brides and grooms, they're going to understand that you're wedding related. So know that they have that ability, and then just use our keywords to strengthen and secure that they know what we do. So now that we know we should put keywords in our copy, in our headlines, alt text, page titles, and meta descriptions, that all sounds great, but what are those things? Let's talk about those. So page titles and meta descriptions, let's start there. Let's call that step 1. So page titles are one of the first things that someone will see in Google search results when sites come up in search results. So the page title will be in blue or in purple if you've clicked on it before, like you can see here in this example. I've clicked on Showit's website before, so it's purple. But it'll show up as that headline larger than the other text. And it's also what Facebook shares if you type your URL into Facebook to share your website. And it's also what shows up in the little browser tab if you have your website pulled up on your internet browser. It should tell potential site visitors and search engines what the page will be about, clearly, concisely, and strategically. So if you're wondering what you should put here, let's chat about this. So what I see sometimes for page titles are homepage. Maybe before today, you didn't know that you were supposed to be setting this up. Totally understandable. Maybe you got super excited to launch your new site and then you just never went back and added it. I hear you. You're not alone. And we're going to add them now. So we want something much more explanatory than homepage. Next, you might see default text left in from a website template that perhaps you purchased. Again, doesn't really help in the marketing of your business, so we're going to change that. Lastly, you might see text that is too long and it cuts off perhaps some of the key information that you want folks to know about what they'll find when they land on your website. If you see the ellipses at the end, that's what I mean. It's getting cut off, so Google's just giving us a ... If you've seen any of these before or you're guilty of them yourself, you're not alone. So what should we do instead? So with our page titles, they should be 55 to 70 characters long. They should include the keywords that you'd ideally like that page on your website to show up for in search results. So what do you think that folks would be searching for in order to bring up that page? If your page that you're doing a page title for is, let's say, a pricing page, maybe your page title would have something to do with New York City wedding photography pricing, something like that. And from a formatting perspective, for your homepage, I recommend setting it up your business name, dash or divider, and then the main keyword that you're hoping to rank for that page. For internal pages like about or services, something like that, you can swap that order and put the keywords or what that page is about before the dash and your business name. You want to include the business name when you can, just for that brand recognition, and start getting people used to seeing your name out there. So what do these rules look like in practice? For a homepage, let's take this example for a wedding venue. It might look something like this: Reynolds Estate dash a historic estate wedding venue in New Jersey. So again, we have our business name, then we have a dash or a divider, and then we have the keywords that we're ideally hoping to rank for if someone were to search for, say, a wedding venue in New Jersey. If it was for like a pricing page, something like that, it might be NYC wedding photography pricing dash captured joy photography. So in this case, for that internal page, we have your keywords first, then we have the dash, and then we have the brand name. So see how both of these examples clearly let us know what will be on that particular page. They also include our brand name and are the appropriate length without getting cut off. That's all there is to it. If you can do that, you have succeeded. So make sure to go through every page on your website and think about what you'd like or what the most sensible page title should be for that page, so that Google and site visitors that have that page show up in their search results will know what that page is about. So along with our page title comes our meta description. And the meta description is going to be the blurb that you see below the page title when your site shows up in search results. Your meta description should essentially serve as a mini ad, giving folks more information and enticing them to click your link. So we want to tell them more about what will be on that page and also make it interesting. Like if they're going to find out information about pricing, that's always a hot button topic for searchers, is pricing, right? So if that's included on the page, make sure to include that. If you have more specific information about where you're located, other than just say generally New Jersey, you could get more specific there, for example. Some rules of thumb for what to include for your meta descriptions would be they should be 120 to 150 characters long. Like I mentioned before, we want to try and include specifics about your location, what you offer, who you serve, and any relevant page-specific information. And lastly, each page of your website should have a different meta description, because every page of your website will talk about a little bit something different. Your About page talks about you and how you got your start and why you do what you do, perhaps. And your services page might talk about your packages or your process. So you want to let people know what they're going to find differently on those unique pages and write a meta description accordingly. So using our page titles from before, let's add some meta descriptions. So for Reynolds Estate, your meta description might be an estate wedding venue in Montclair, New Jersey, just 1 hour from New York City, specializing in romantic, open-air, tented weddings on our 20-acre garden estate. So from our page title, we already knew that they were a wedding venue in New Jersey, but our meta description allows us to get more clear on the specific details that make their venue unique. It's in Montclair, New Jersey. It's an hour from New York City, which might be helpful for folks that, live in the city but want a venue outside the city that's convenient. Maybe someone's searching specifically for tented weddings. or maybe they're looking for a garden estate. So that we've sprinkled in some additional keywords that are related to our specific venue in the meta description so that we're hitting some more specific details than just, a wedding venue. For our pricing page, your meta description might be something like, light and airy film photographer serving New York City and Westchester. Learn about our wedding photography packages, engagement sessions, and heirloom albums and prints. So with this one, we learn a little bit more specifically about pricing and services for this wedding photographer. We learn that they're a film photographer. Maybe that's something that someone was searching for. We learn a little bit more specifically that they serve New York City and Westchester. And then we learn what we're going to find on the page. So photography packages, engagement sessions, and more information about their albums and prints. So by including each of those things, you're also hitting on some additional keywords that folks might have typed into their search engine if they were looking for, say, New York City wedding photography packages or film photographers in New York City. So with both of these examples, they're clear and concise. They don't get cut off. They share pertinent information to that specific page, and they include keywords and location details where relevant. So with this, as you're drafting these out, I like to write them before I put them in my website. So sometimes I'll do a spreadsheet with like the page title, and the meta description all in a row so that I can map them out and think about my strategy before I put it in my site. A helpful tool that I use often for making sure that things are the right length is this website here. I've highlighted the URL in the top there, but in case it's too small, it's websiteadvantage.com.au/Google-SERP, which is SERP-emulator. And why I like this tool is because we can plug in a page title and a description that we think we might use, and it mocks it up for us above so that we can see how long it will be and ensure that the key details that we're adding in won't get cut off. So before I add it to any of my sites, I run it through this tool. And then you might be wondering, okay, cool, I'm gonna write my page titles, I'm gonna do my descriptions, got it, replacing homepage, this is gonna be great. Where do I put this? Great question. So when we log into Showit, when you click on a specific page, you'll see right now the home page is selected because the blue home is on the left-hand panel. When the home page is selected, or any other page, on the right-hand panel, you'll see that there's a tab that says SEO settings. Click on that, and then you can copy and paste your page title and meta description into the fields provided. We've already tested them in the previous screen to make sure they're the proper length, so then you're good to go. You can also add your share image, which is the image that gets pulled by Facebook, let's say, if you share a URL on Facebook. Then, of course, hit publish. If you go and share a link on Facebook, let's say, and you notice that the link or the page title and description or the image hasn't updated, run that URL through Facebook Debugger. Just Google it, Facebook Debugger, and it will scrape that URL a couple of times until the most recent information pops up. Sometimes I'll see in the Showit user group that people are like, I updated my thing, why isn't it showing up? Run it through Facebook Debugger and that'll solve it for you. Sometimes it takes Facebook a little bit of time to realize that we've made changes, so that will speed up the process for you. So that's page titles and meta descriptions. That's your task number one. Once you've done that, we'll move on to tagging text for SEO. So tagging text for SEO essentially helps Google to understand the hierarchy of information written on each page of your website so that they can more easily understand and process what you do and what your website is about. So each of those text elements on your website, you can go in and manually tag them in a strategic way so that Google more easily can read through and scan through your website and understand what you do, which is super helpful. So what our text tags look like, let's see. We have H1, H2, H3, P, nav, and div. But what are these? Good question, right? So H1s are essentially a one-liner that sums up what your page will be about. I like to think about tagging text as if I'm writing an essay. So if you think back to writing essays in college or high school, I know maybe some of you just groaned, I get it, but it will come in handy here, I promise. You'll think about each page of your website as if it's a standalone essay. So each essay that you wrote always had one title, and then it had some headings and maybe some subheadings that fell under those headings. This follows the exact same rules. So each page of your website should have one H1 that essentially tells Google what that page will be about. So if it was your about page, it might be about Bailey-Anna Rose photography. It tells Google that this page is going to be about your company. Or if it was a pricing page, it might be New York City wedding photography pricing. It may not look or sound the prettiest from a creative perspective, but we want it to be super clear what that page will be about so that Google understands and knows how to pull up that page if someone is searching for a relevant topic. So on every page of your website, you'll tag just one text element as an H1. So just one per page. Home page gets just one H1, about page gets just one H1, etc. One text element. Then your main headings throughout the page that break up the information into key sections will be tagged as H2s. H3s are subheadings that further break up information underneath H2s. P is paragraph or body text. Navigation is any text in your navigation bar that is a link. Buttons on other parts of your page will not be nav. The only thing that is nav is text that's in that navigation bar. And then div is for kind of more generic text on your page that if you're not sure ever, like, how do I tag this? Div is always a safe choice. So you could tag those extra buttons as div. If you have like decorative text elements, like let's say you have your process and you have like a semi-transparent 01, 02, 03 behind each step, where it's just like a visual element, you could tag that as div. So at this point, you're probably saying, okay, that sounds great, but how does that actually work? So let's take a look at this mock-up. This is the home page of my free Bailey-Anna Rose template, featuring the beautiful photography by Paige Marie Photography that I'm so glad she let me use a couple years back. Thank you, Paige. But let's chat through how these text elements are tagged in practice so we can see. So as you can see at the very, very top, our home, about, services, gallery, blog, and contact in our navigation bar are tagged as nav. Again, those are the only links or buttons that are tagged as nav that are in our navigation bar. Our main headline on the page that's towards the top that tells Google what the page will be about. In this case, Bailey-Anna Rose offers fine art wedding photography in Missoula, Montana, is tagged as H1. That's the only H1 because again, we only have one H1 on each page of our website. Then our big headlines underneath that break up the content of the page are tagged as H2. In this case, that would be about Bailey-Anna Rose or wedding photography services. Those are the big chunks of information. You can see paragraph text is next. It's like our paragraphs, or even decorative text like the "so glad you're here" that's featured here, where it's in a fancy headline or subheader font, but it doesn't really add significant weight or value and tell Google what we do. So we'll tag that as paragraph because it's not super important, even though we've chosen to punch it out visually in an interesting way. Our H3s are the next headings that break up our wedding photography services. So in this case, it's bridal photography, wedding photography, elopement photography, because they break up wedding photography services into further little chunks. And then div, you can see, are used for our links like more info that are not in our navigation bar. And over those 3 images under wedding photography services, we have a decorative, O1, O2, O3. And again, that's not adding super great value and telling Google what we do. So we'll tag that as div 2. It's generic, a little decorative, and doesn't hold much weight. So that, I think, should help you kind of parse through your page and think about each page as an essay, and then go in and tag those pieces of text. If you're wondering where to do this, if we look at our Showit dashboard and we click on a particular text element, for instance, right now, Baileyana Rose offers fine art wedding photography, etc., is highlighted and selected. On the right-hand panel, under text properties, there is a drop-down menu next to text tag, and you can select the appropriate option for each piece of text. So you'll just go through your website and audit it for the correct ones. So step 2, tag your text. Step 3 is image SEO. Go to the next screen. So since so many of you guys are probably creatives with imagery-driven websites, you'll want to be sure to add alt text or descriptions to your photos. Whoops, it looks like that fell over. Hopefully that'll pop back up for us. Sorry, guys. Hopefully my screen just pops up one more time. Thank you so much for your patience. Let's see if this pops up. Okay. Shamisha, can you see?
We could see your screen. Oh.
Okay, great.
If you, yeah, try plugging it back in one more time.
Sorry, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. Technology, always a fun adventure. We'll give it one more second. Hopefully it pops back up. Lost my second monitor.
Well, either way, there's a ton of questions that we have for the Q&A at the end. So guys, keep putting those questions in the chat because we are keeping track of them. And we are going to do a Q&A at the end while her computer screen comes back up. But you guys are being super interactive and we love it. And I mean, Sarah, we have people from all over the world listening in right now. So it is so awesome to see all of these questions.
Awesome, awesome. I can see my screens back up. Can you guys see them?
No, not yet.
No? Okay. Let's see. So sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
How about now?
Not quite yet. But guys, as you're listening in, we will be sending a follow-up email with a blog on a lot of the things that she's talking about. So as you're taking notes, if you miss something, we'll have some stuff in there.
She shared it with us.
Share your screen with us, Sarah.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, let me see one other thing. Thanks so much, guys, for your patience. I appreciate it. Let's try one more thing. I think this is going to be the magic touch.
Oh, we got something going. We got something brewing.
Okay, perfect. Let me just skip ahead to where we are. Thank you so much, guys, for your patience as we navigated this in my tech glitch here. It's just loading the next couple screens. Okay, so as we get back up to image SEO, I know that you guys are primarily creative, so we want to make sure that we are optimizing our images for success for our website. So what that's going to look like is, first and foremost, I'd love you to do some work optimizing your images before they get loaded into Showit if you can. If you can compress your images into like 300 kilobyte or less, that would be great. Showit already does such a great job for us to compress and optimize our images. But if we can do some of the legwork first, that should also help our images to load quickly when we are getting everything set up and loaded in. So perfect. With that, you can also export our files from Lightroom or whatever photo processing platform that you use with a name that gives a general idea of what's in the photo. This won't be as important as the alt text that we're going to talk about in a moment, but if you can rename the files appropriately with a little bit of context of what's in them, that's great. In terms of alt text is simply a phrase or sentence that describes what's happening in the photo. Now, this isn't a place to go crazy spamming keywords or worrying about saying just the right thing. You want to just describe the photo as if you're describing it to a blind person. Not only is this helpful for SEO, for Google bots to crawl through your site and get a little bit of context about your photos in a way that they can't see them as humans can, but it's also great for visually impaired visitors who might be coming to your website and relying on a website reader to see your images. So what this might look like, let's chat through with this photo here as an example. So bad or less good alt text would be something like this, essentially a long strand of random numbers where we don't learn anything about what's happening in the photo. Spammy alt text might look something like this, where we've just crammed in a whole bunch of keywords, but not a specific description of the photo. Google is on to us when we're trying to be spammy with keywords, so just don't do it and just describe the photo as if you were talking, and only include a keyword if it really makes sense. Lastly, our better alt text choice is just to describe the photo. So it might be something like this: bride holding peach and white floral bouquet. Clean, simple, easy to read. That's all you need, really. So now this might seem kind of like a tedious task. So grab your favorite glass of wine, glass of coffee, whatever feels best for you, and go through your website and add alt text or descriptions to every one of your photos on your website. I know, it's a lot, but again, don't overthink it. Just describe the photo as if you were describing it to someone who couldn't see it. That's it, super simple. So where do we put this? Now in Showit, we have kind of two photo elements. One is an individual photo, and then one is a gallery of photos. For an individual photo, you'll just select the photo. You can see this one here is selected. And then over here under description, just add in your alt text there. Then for galleries, you'll click on the gallery itself. And on the right-hand panel, you can add the description for each photo that's in the gallery. So you can do that there. So we've covered page titles and meta descriptions. We've covered tagging text. We've covered images. You guys are doing great. Thank you so much for your attention and your questions. I can't wait to hear more of them. Let's chat a couple things really quickly about blogging tips. Now, blogging for SEO could be a webinar all of its own, but here are a few tips to get you started. So first, do activate the Yoast plugin that comes with your tier 2 blog subscription, or you can add it if you're on tier 3. It's free. You don't necessarily need the premium one, but it can serve as a pulse check as you're writing your blogs to make sure there's not like little key things that you could do to make your blog post that much better. It'll give you tips for that. Keep in mind, it's sort of a robot. So there will be times that you choose to ignore a tip that it tells you to do, because as a person, you know that there was a reason why you put something that way, and that's okay. It will also give you a spot to put in a page title and meta description for each one of your blog posts, so you can tell Google what you want it to share if your blog post comes up in a search result. You can also add alt text for your blog images, so do remember to do that. And then for text styles, do use them appropriately from the SEO perspective as you're writing your posts. So use the headline text as a headline and use your paragraph font as a paragraph. Your blog post title will always be tagged as H1, so you're good to go there. And then from an overall blog writing strategy perspective, do write blog posts that provide value and answer questions for folks that are visiting your site or that might be potential clients, not just portfolio pieces. a lot of times, especially with creatives, photographers, wedding planners, etc., I'll see that blogs are primarily a quick little 3-sentence blurb about a wedding or event that you captured or put on. And then it's just a long gallery of images. And while those can be helpful for sharing your work, they're not always the most impactful from an SEO perspective. So you might consider also writing really pithy, thoughtful posts that cover answers to the most commonly asked questions that you get, or write-ups on venues in your area. Why? A couple of reasons. One, if it's a question you get all the time, it'll save you the time where you don't have to manually type out the answers each time. You can just send them the blog post. Saves you time, makes you look super prepared. Second, Google then sees that blog post and they go, oh man, this person's really an expert in what they do. They've written this really thoughtful, high quality blog post. If they're an expert, I'm going to say that they're an authority in what they do, and I'm going to give them a better odd of showing up in search results. So that's great too. Additionally, if you're writing posts, say about venues in your area or venues you'd like to shoot at per se, this can be so valuable for if, let's say, folks are looking at a particular venue in their area and they see your blog post talking about your favorite spots for first looks or your recommendations for light for portraits before dinner, that kind of a thing, where you've got these techniques and these experiences with the venue already, they're going to say, wow, this person, I should hire them because I won't have to stress at all that my pictures will be good because they're already a pro. So then that blog post could show up in search results for that venue. And then when they're picking their venue, they also could pick you. That's actually how my sister hired her wedding photographer. She found a blog post that she had written about the venue that my sister had already booked. So it can be really helpful in that way, both for potential clients, the venue will love it too, and it's great for local SEO. So think about where you can add value, answer questions, and really make your potential clients feel like they can trust you and depend on you to be the resource that I know that you already are. Quality content will always outweigh lots of iffy posts. So I would rather you write occasionally these really good posts than bang out short posts that don't have a lot of words and are, not super helpful. So keep that in mind. Okay, so last thing before we get into questions, which I'm super excited about, these are kind of some last minute back end pieces that I think will help you in the long run. First, SSL, Google Analytics, and Google Search Console. Again, Google Analytics and Google Search Console could be a webinar all on their own, but there's two key things that I want you to do with them that will allow you to gather data over time. And when you're ready to really dig into those two platforms, you'll have the data to play with. So let's chat. So first, what is an SSL certificate? How do I get one? So an SSL certificate essentially tells Google that your website is secure and that you're storing information in a safe way and that people can trust your website and trust going to the website. It will also give you the S at the end of your https://domain. If you go to your website and you see your website up in the search bar, if there's a lock icon next to it, you're good to go. Your site is secure. You don't have to worry. If you go to your website and it says not secure next to your URL, you do need an SSL certificate still. And you can get that so easily because the folks at Showit are awesome. All you have to do is go into your Showit design dashboard, use the little chat function in that bottom right-hand corner and say, hey guys, would you please add an SSL certificate to my website? It's literally that easy. It can take about 24 hours to take effect, but then you won't have to worry about it anymore and your site will be secure. So easy, right? Additionally, if you're like, do I need that? Yeah. Google has recently started kind of giving warnings to folks that land on websites that don't have SSL certificates, where it says, this site might not be secure, and it looks kind of scary, and folks might click away. I don't go to those websites, even though I know this. So get your SSL certificate so that you don't miss out on clients who might be scared away by a Google warning like that. So again, just chat with Showit support. They'll get you all hooked up in no time. Okay, so Google Analytics and Google Search Console. First, what are they? What's the difference? And then second, I'll tell you what you need to do to set up now. So Google Analytics essentially gives you information about who visits your site, which pages they visit, how long they stay, and where they found you, things like that. So it's like, it tells you things about what's happening on your website, how people are using your website. This can be super valuable to know because if you see, let's say that you're spending so much time posting on Instagram and none of your website traffic comes from Instagram, maybe you don't have to spend so much time there. Or maybe you should revisit your strategy so that it encourages people to click to your website. Or if you see that you're paying for advertising at Wedding Wire or The Knot, but you never get referral traffic from those sites, maybe it's not worth paying the money and you could pay the money on something else for your business. So you can really use those as ways to think about how your marketing dollars and work are paying off and revisit your strategies if they're not doing what you think. Additionally, you can see things like pages that folks most commonly leave on your website. So if someone gets to say like your pricing page and they always leave, you might think, okay, what's unclear or why are they always leaving and what can I improve on that page to make them more likely to stay on my website and reach out? So you might think about, okay, do I have a call to action inviting folks to contact me? Do I talk about my process so that people understand what it's like? Do I have testimonials so that people feel like they can trust me and that they should reach out to me? So Google Analytics, again, just gives you data of how people are using your website so that you can improve it over the long run. Cool. Google Analytics. Google Search Console gives us insights into the terms that folks are searching for on Google that are bringing up our site in the search results. We can learn about what search results are effective in bringing up our website. We can learn how frequently our site is being clicked on for each term, and also the position that we're ranking for each term. So whereas Google Analytics tells us how people are using our site as a whole, Google Search Console is more search related and tells us more about how our site is performing in search results. So now that I have a basic understanding of what the difference is, what should I do now to make sure that I have the data that I need in the future to refer back to? So the first thing is I want you to go and get a Google Analytics ID and put it on your Showit site so that even if you're not ready to start looking at that data, when you are, you'll have the data to look back at. So start tracking that now. If you go to Google Analytics and create an account, they will give you an analytics ID that starts with a G dash string of numbers. And you can add this to your website by logging into Showit, clicking Site Settings on the top left-hand side. And when that pop-up window pops up, go to the Third Party tab and copy and paste it into the measurement ID. Again, that's the number that's G dash a long string of numbers. Just copy and paste that in, hit publish, you're good to go. If you have a number in there already that starts with a UA dash long string of numbers, that's the legacy ID. Recently, Google Analytics rolled out a new version, and you'll want to add this new ID because that's the number that they're going to be using for the long haul moving forward. Right now, they're measuring slightly different things, but for the future, the new ID will be what you want. So if you didn't have either, great, get the new one now. And if you had the UA number, still go in and get the new one. And then put it in and hit publish. Next, I want you to submit your sitemap to Google Search Console. You'll find your specific sitemaps at these URLs. You can take a screenshot of this. It's also accessible in the Showit help documents as well. Submitting a sitemap essentially tells Google Search Console how your website is structurally set up. It gives you a map of your site. And if you make changes to your website, you can also ask Google Search Console to index it and hopefully review your changes sooner. This is a little bit more complex and not necessarily the most intuitive for a webinar such as this. So if you need a video tutorial on how to get a Google Analytics ID or how to submit a sitemap, email me. I'll send you a video tutorial on either or both. My email is Sarah with an H, SARAH, at digitalgracedesign.com. So again, if you need a video tutorial on either of those two things, I've got you, and I will send it on over. So, okay, y'all. It's time to finally start checking SEO off of your to-do list. And I know that this was a ton of information. One, refer back to this video because I know Showit's going to post it. And two, if it's helpful to have a step-by-step, day-by-day breakdown to make this all a little bit more tangible, I have that for you. If you do each of these things, starting on Monday, you could be done by next Friday. And this is taking into account like 30 minutes each day. So if Monday you do your keyword research, Tuesday you write and publish all of your page titles and meta descriptions. Wednesday, you can tag your text. Thursday, you can do your image SEO. And Friday, you can set up your Google Analytics, Search Console, and make sure that you have an SSL certificate. So much of your groundwork is already done at that point. And then your blogging SEO is just ongoing every time you write a blog post. So while this feels like a lot, if you just do one thing each day, by the end of next week, you're done setting that groundwork. And I mean, how cool would it feel to feel like you have confidently set up your website for success from SEO? So please do this. If you're like me and you feel like a checklist is super helpful so that you don't forget anything, I'm a major list person. So if you are too, I hear you and I've got you. If you head over to bit.ly/showit-SEO-checklist, you can snag a free 16-point SEO checklist that will make sure that you tick each of these main key things off of your list in bite-sized amounts. So go sign up for that. I'll send it over to you via email immediately after you sign up, and you can start taking action now. So thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to even show up today. That's such a huge choice and a huge accomplishment. And I'm so proud of you for taking this huge step already and for taking the time to process all that information and action it. So now I would love to welcome any and all of your questions.
All right. Woo! Guys, we made it. That was a lot of information, but hopefully you're no longer scared of SEO, because I know there's a ton of people in the chat who are saying that was so helpful. They're not as confused as when they started, but we do have some questions in here. So we're going to start going over them because there's quite a few. And guys, if she doesn't get to the nitty gritty of what you're looking for in your questions, you can always reach out to her, Sarah at digitalgracedesign. Is it digitalgrace.com?
Sarah at digitalgracedesign.com.
Sarah at digitalgracedesign.com. I almost had it. Or guys, if you're on Instagram, you can also reach out to her and DM her. But let's get started. From the Travel Mechanic video blog, she asks, do you need to blog to have good SEO?
Yes and no. The more content that is good content that we can provide to Google, the more thoroughly they understand what we do and the more thoroughly they can see us as an authority. So technically no, but if you're writing good blog content or your competitors are, it might be helpful that you do it. It just gives them more to work with and more to understand what you do.
Perfect. Okay. We have a question from Kim. She asked, she didn't ask. She said she just found out that her Showit site hasn't been indexed by Google. So how do you fix that?
Yeah, so that's where the sitemap comes in. Definitely submit your sitemap to Google Search Console. And then that basically says, hey, Google, I'm here. This is how my website is organized. Please look through it. Google will do what they want, let's be real, but it will hopefully just encourage them to go and take a look at your website. And if there's key pages on your website that you feel like are really valuable and have good content, you can submit those specifically to be indexed.
Perfect. Awesome. So we have a question from Dan. He says, how long does it take to be shown in Google when you start writing your SEO?
That is the hard question. We want immediate results with everything. I mean, in this world today, you can get Amazon Prime shipped to you in like 2 hours. If only SEO was that easy. So it can take months for SEO to really start taking effect. That said, sometimes you see things happen much quicker. It sort of depends on your area. If it's a really competitive area, it can take longer to move up because, there are just people that have been killing it at their SEO game for longer. So please know that this is a long haul. And even if it takes you like 6 months or more for things to really start taking effect, that's not out of the norm, and hang in there.
Good. That's good encouragement. Hang in there, guys. It's the long haul, not short term. Good. All right. So we have a question from Vinod. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He says, can text keywords also improve your website image search results?
Yeah. If you have alt text in your images, sometimes Google will pull that when they're pulling images in search results too. So it's definitely a great idea to include that. And if you have keywords that like really specifically go with that photo, include them when it makes sense.
Okay, awesome. All right, here we have another question from Abby, or Abhi. It says, how do we modify the page naming strategy for one page, Showit designs, to be more effective?
So in general, I would typically recommend, if you can, to over time build out your website into more than one page. It can be harder to rank single page websites because you're just giving Google less content to understand what you do. So for that, you're going to essentially have one page title and meta description because you only have a home page.
There you go. Awesome. All right. So we have another question from Kareem. It says, do we use the same approach for blog titles as we use for page titles?
So for your blog title, you're probably going to write the blog title itself, in a way that sums up what that blog post is about, whether it's answering a specific question or, just summing up the blog post as a whole. So yes, tell Google what the blog post will be about in the blog post title. And then when you write the page title for that blog post, it'll typically be like the blog post title dash and your business name.
Okay, hopefully that answered that for you, Kareem. We have a question from Rocco. It says, any SEO tips if you are launching a new website but don't want to lose 20 years worth of SEO?
So a couple of things. If you have a bunch of blog posts from those 20 years and they're getting you traffic, the wonderful thing about transferring a site to Showit is you can transfer those blog posts over to Showit so that you don't lose those 20 years of SEO. The Showit support team is awesome and they will help you with this, which is brilliant and one of the many reasons why I love them. But for the rest of your site pages, if you can keep some things consistent when you're designing a new site, that will be super helpful for maintaining your rank. So keep the same pages, keep the same URLs. So if like your about page is yourdomain.com/about-us, still call it that. Keep the content as similar as you can so that Google can essentially see that it's very similar content. You will often see a slight dip in your SEO when you get a new website, whether it's a new platform or a new design. But typically speaking, as long as you've kept that framework and set that groundwork up for success with the new design, you'll bounce right back.
That's awesome. Awesome. So we have a question from Dana. So should everything on your page have a text tag?
All of your text, yes. All of your text should have a text tag. And if you're not sure what it should be, again, you're pretty much safe tagging it as P or div. But yes, especially make sure that all of your headlines and main headings are tagged appropriately so that Google can easily go through and understand the outline of the page.
Okay, perfect. We have another question from Abhi. It says, is it sufficient enough to rename your images within Showit, or do they need to be renamed before you upload them?
So if you can rename them before you upload them, that's great. That said, if you have hundreds of images, I wouldn't stress too much as long as like the image isn't super huge and it's not slowing down your load time for other reasons, then maybe you'd want to re-upload them. But the image title, not the alt text, but the title of it itself is a pretty small ranking factor that I honestly wouldn't stress over going back and redoing it all.
There you go. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. We have a question from Stasia for focus key phrases related to tags. I think I missed part of her question. We'll come back to that one.
Okay.
We have a question from Aaron. It says, I switched to Showit from WordPress. Do I need to redo my Google Analytics, or will it still work since the blog is still through WordPress?
So you'll definitely want to keep the same analytics ID. You'll just want to make sure to put it in the slot within Showit, so that it continues to track all of your Showit related pages as well as your blog posts.
There you go. Awesome. We have a question from Lauren. We have like two more questions. We have a question from Lauren. She says, question on alt text. If I have a gallery of headshots, literally everyone's alt text would be something like bald man smiling at the camera or blonde girl with red shirt smiling. Are those good?
So to be fully transparent, I feel like for a huge gallery, the alt text probably isn't quite as vital as photos like sprinkled throughout the rest of your website, especially ones that are on your homepage. So I wouldn't stress too badly if you've got a gallery of like a million photos. It's super time consuming, and I think that the value in ranking is probably not going to be there to like go crazy.
Okay, perfect. All right, I got the rest of the question from Stasia. It says strategy for focus key phrases related to tags. Is there a strategy?
For text tags, like I think the most important one is always going to be the H1 on every page of your website. And I think as you're clear and strategic about explaining what folks are going to find on that page, that's your best strategy. A lot of times we try and get really cute and fun with our main headlines, and that cannot always be our best help in SEO. So I'd rather your strategy just be clear and concise and let Google know what the page is going to be about, especially for that H1 text tag. That's great. And then I think just be clear with what each section is going to be. Clear and concise is always going to win over cute.
There you go. Awesome. We have a question from Duo Collective Marketing. He says there's a lot of conflicting info about only having one H1 tag per page. A lot of people say that it doesn't really matter if you have more than one. He wants to know what your opinion is on that.
I think you should only have one H1. That's my opinion.
Does it like confuse Google if you have more than one? Okay.
Yeah, it essentially just makes it so that Google's like, I'm not really sure what this page is about. Is it about this or is it about this? And I suppose if it's like complementary where they kind of go together, it may not be the end of the world. I guess I would want more specific information around like what your strategy is for having two. Like, why are you doing it? And could that second one just be an H2?
There you go. One last question. We have a question from Brittany. It says, for my plus sites, do those need an SSL as well?
Yes. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Shamisha, but you have to ask for the SSL for a plus site separately.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can just reach out to our team and they will help you out with that.
Cool.
But that is all the questions that I found in the chat, guys. If I missed your question, I'm sorry. There was a lot happening today. But once again, reach out to Sarah via email, sarah@digitalgracedesign.com, and also DM her on Instagram if you need to get in contact or if you have any other questions. But other than that, guys, it was so good having you on today. I love seeing everybody from all over the world tuning in. There will be a replay of this live on this link, so make sure you come back, but also check your email. We'll be sending out a blog post with more information and kind of a breakdown of what you guys learned today. So have a good day, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.